Yo, what's going on, guys? And we're talking about a report coming from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points that the Pacers and the Pelicans are the two teams to look or to watch out for and keep an eye on for maybe a deal involving Jonathan Kuminga. And it seems like it's more the Warriors want to shop Kuminga to get their upgrade. I've said for the longest time, maybe it ends up just being the Kuminga Vucevic swap that we thought for the longest time. That just helps out the Warriors, and Kuminga kind of fits what the Bulls are doing. But let's get right into it. The Warriors are trying to be a playoff team, trying to be a contender, and Kuminga has just this season for this squad. When he's played, there's been mixed results. He's averaged just under 14 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 3 assists. He's someone that, in my opinion, this year, if he has a team option, he's on an expiring contract. He's 23 years old. He's played 13 games. He's shooting 32% from three, 47% from the field. I understand if they're trying to shop him to maximize the window that they have right now. So, with that being said, I'd like to hear your guys' opinions before we start doing some trades. What do you guys think Kaminga's value is, and what would you trade for him? I mentioned before the deal that I've thought for the longest was this Bulls deal that we've all heard rumored for a while, and Vooch just seems like he would fit what the Warriors want, and Kuminga would just be a rental to test out how he'd look in a Bulls uniform. And I think the only thing, yeah, right here, this trade can't be done until January 15th. But salary wise, it all works. It all works. It just can't happen until January 15th. All the other trades, if they're recently signed, would be December 15th. Bird right guys would be January 15th. So we're going to go to the Pacers. Who could the Pacers have that end up, you know, being someone of interest for the Warriors? They'd be sending out $22.5 million. I think it would be a contract that the Pacers would want to be getting out from under. And that's where this becomes interesting to see, due to me believing that I think they like a lot of their guys. And I think the guys that the Warriors would be interested in are the ones that they wouldn't want to trade. So that's where that becomes difficult, because Aaron Nesmith would be the one that I think that they would want to bring in. I think Aaron Nesmith is somebody that they would want to keep. So would this end up being like an Obi Toppin who maybe does fit what they're trying to do? This deal would have to require the Pacers including another $1 million. So the minimum salary that they would have to send out is $15 million for this deal to work. And when I look at that, that's might be a bit more difficult or not as easy for them to achieve as the Pacers would want. Because I think the Pacers are cool taking on a flyer. I just really wonder, and they probably want to take draft capital from the Warriors. You can just assume whatever draft capital that is in the comment section. For the Warriors, I think they would want a forward, and that's where it comes. Would this be an Obi Toppin, or would you see a world where this ends up being like Aaron Nesmith and Jarris Walker? And in this scenario, I think this is the deal that if I'm the Warriors and if there's two players that I mean, Jarris Walker's just could be a consolidation prize right here. Yeah, Kuminga wouldn't be able to be traded till January 15th. But in this deal, if I'm the Warriors, I get Aaron Nesmith, who can put B-Pod on, and Buddy Hield more on the bench. And then we have a lineup: Steph Curry, sometimes Moses Moody, but it'd be Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Aaron Nesmith, Draymond Green, and then one of the centers at the center position that from, obviously Quinn Post, or it could really be a TJD, Trace Jackson Davis, or Al Horford. While the other lineup, Draymond Green, obviously at center, Jimmy Butler, Aaron Nesmith, Moses Moody, or B. Potter, Buddy Hield, and Steph Curry. It just gives you a lot of Gary Payton II. It just gives you a lot more versatility. And if I'm the Warriors, that's kind of sort of the deal that I'm looking at that really entices me and put in the draft capital, because I get a contract that I like in Aaron Nesmith. And then Jarris Walker could be someone that we develop and take a flyer on. Now, what if it is Obi Toppin that we end up making this deal built around? Who's the flyer that they would include in here? Would it be a Cam Jones? Cam Jones really hasn't played for this team, for the Pacers, in the way that I think they would have liked. The other one would have been Ben Shepherd, but I think they would keep Ben Shepherd. So in this scenario, you get Cam Jones, who played some shooting guard and college but then play point guard once Tyler Kolek went to the NBA, who's able to play both. Again, this deal wouldn't be able to happen until January 15th, but it is able to happen because the Pacers would be $272,000 below allowable income amount, which I think in this scenario, you get Obi Toppin, who isn't as good as Aaron Nesmith, but you still are able to have that versatility of lineups where either Obi Toppin, Draymond Green at the front court, or Obi Toppin, Al Horford, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, something like that, that you could have, a bigger size that would make this team a bit bigger. And I think that's something that there would be interest. Now, I don't know why, but my camera was just saying like, oh, we're going to connect to this, but no. So over here, if we go over to the Pelicans, what would this deal be around? How funny would it be for Jordan Poole? I'm kidding. Supposedly it would be for like a Trey Murphy or a Herb Jones, which in my mind would mean the Warriors would be giving up whatever draft capital possible. So the easiest one would be draft capital and Jonathan Kuminga, I assume, for a swap of Trey Murphy for Kuminga, but they would still have to put up $2.5 million in salary. Would you then throw in, to give up less draft capital, a B pod and make this a B pod trade where, yeah, you could hypothetically do this deal because, and I'm just going to take off the bird right thing just so it stops saying failed because it's annoying me. While we all know this deal wouldn't be able to happen until January 15th, and you're like, all right, they would need like a minimum salary. They just gave up B pod. Who could be someone that they're interested in? Maybe we just throw in Micah Peavy, who's a really good defensive swingman who can guard 1 through, some 4s. And in this scenario, yeah, Trey Murphy, Micah Peavy, or Jonathan Kuminga, and Brandon and B-Pod. That I think that would actually be a deal that, the Pelicans get off of the money, and they also get a young guy that they can take a look at B-Pod and extend, while Kuminga would fit next to Zion. Now, Trey Murphy is better than Herb Jones. So let's say they do this Herb Jones deal. Now, they would have to stack salary because I think outright this deal, the Pelicans, would be $8.5 million over the allowable income amount, which then you would think, what if Kevon Looney gets traded back there, which is actually feasibly possible that they could just throw in Kevon Looney and, as we mentioned earlier, either a Micah Peavy or a Karlo Matikovic, which I think Michael Peavy would be the guy here. Now they're sending 3 guys with a guy that I think that the Warriors could include or would include in this scenario. Man, it's very interesting. The other thing I would think is like maybe we find out that D'Anthony Milton's just not healthy and just not going to be someone who ends up playing impactful minutes for the Warriors, which, obviously would suck because he's someone that they brought in and they were hoping he was going to be an impact, and he still hasn't played for them ever since, getting hurt last year. They could do something like this, Kuminga and Milton, and then they get Herb Jones, Kevon Looney, and Micah Peavy. You could take off Micah Peavy if you want to believe that would allow the salary to be allowed. And yeah, one of the things I was going to bring up was that in this, obviously, drop capital, the Warriors have to give up significant amount because they would be, poaching 2 players that have at least first round. I think 2 first round picks would go for Trey Murphy. Maybe you can get one of those first round picks taken off if you put B-Pod in there. The other thing is that like Kuminga, I don't think he's just a neutral value. Now, what would it be if they weren't going to just trade for any of those guys, and it was just like right now Kevon Looney and Saddiq Bey for Jonathan Kuminga would be at 14.1 to $200,000 more than what the straight up deal for Herb Jones would have been. So you would have to obviously look for other salary to add to there. And that's where, do you think they would maybe think about a Jose Alvarado in this deal? I know we brought up that this would have to be something including, because right here 8.8, so 4.4 is what they would. Micah Peavy with Jose Alvarado theoretically could get this deal done, or just Jose Alvarado just thrown in by himself, and then you have the Warriors include, who we mentioned earlier, D'Anthony Milton. Would allow, let me see, let me take off Milton. Would this deal be allowed just straight up if it's like this? Yes. This would be the deal straight up. Kuminga for Looney, Saddiq Bey, and Jose Alvarado. The Warriors would have to do something with like D'Anthony Milton and probably one other player to get this deal done, but that's kind of the idea of like that deal. So What do you guys think of this? What do you guys think would be the deal that you would do if you were the Warriors? Which players? I think the Pelicans have maybe, obviously, if you're going for Herb Jones or Trey Murphy, that's the ones that you want. Maybe the depth pieces of Looney, Sadiq Bey, and Jose Alvarado is better than just Obi Toppin if they're not going to give up Aaron Nesmith. That's it. Like, comment, and subscribe.